Welcome back, everybody. This is Coach Davis of Winston-Salem State. Today we'll be taking a look at Tajanel's long jump at the CIAA championships. Okay, we'll take a look at it in slow motion. All right, first thing that Tajanel has to execute correctly is her approach. Her approach is broken down into three segments: drive phase, acceleration phase, and then transition phase as she goes into takeoff. Um, Drive phase is the set up your runway to push you down the track. I always talk about pushing instead of reaching or even talking about speed. I want my athletes to run themselves in a position and react. So the first part of that is drive phase. Drive phase has to be consistent. It doesn't always have to be great. Reason for that is most scratches or foul jumps come from not pushing out the back correctly. Tajanel has a coach's mark, which is this long piece of tape right here. And we always check her takeoff foot and how close it's coming toward that mark. It's big enough for her to see it. It's big enough for me to see it. If she's over, that means that she pushed out too hard out the back, and she'll have to take a shorter step coming into takeoff, which she does on this particular jump. That's why she doesn't foul. I always encourage my kids to be on the mark, 6 inches in front, 6 inches behind. You don't have to change your stride pattern coming into takeoff. So she's about 9 inches past it, so she has to do some work to get her foot down. She does a decent job of cutting her step. She gets all of the takeoff board. Does a decent job executing her approach. Alright, so now that we've talked a little bit about the accuracy about the approach, let's actually talk about some of the technical components of it. If we break down her sprint mechanics, her push out the back, it's pretty decent. She's getting in a triple extension, which is toeing off the ground. You see, if I was right beside her, you'd be able to draw a straight line through her back leg all the way up through her spine of her back. So she does a good job of pushing initially. Next thing, you don't want to reach, so we always talk about squeezing the knees at contact. You can't push if your foot is out in front of your hips. Okay, so if I drew a quick stick figure, this being your hips, quick stick figure when she's in a drive phase, this point being your hips, this being your leg. Alright, that position is ideal when this back foot is pushing off the ground. But when closing it out, getting a little bit taller, when that foot's contacting the ground, you want it right up under the hips. And we always talk about squeezing the knees. So when your knees are side by side, it's a decent indication that your foot is under your hips and that you're pushing it. Your foot's out in front of your hips, you're going to have to wait longer before you can push. You can only push if your foot's underneath your hips or behind your body. So she does a good job of not overstriding. Each time her foot comes into full support with the ground, her knees are about side by side, so she's not overstriding. She can do a better job of this, and this is probably the reason why she was a little bit past her coach's mark right here. So she does need to do a better job of pushing instead of reaching out. She works herself into a nice, tall running motion. You can see the high recovery of her heel. That's what you notice at a high velocity. She's running pretty much full speed. Trying to move down the runway with her. One thing that I like to see her do a little bit better of a job of on her penultimate step, which starts right here. We practice taking a slightly longer stride so your body naturally, your center of mass naturally drops. And then we practice taking a shorter step at the board than that stride, which gives you a natural low to high motion going along with Tajanel's natural jumping ability, which will help get her further than 5'79", which is 19 feet. And, ultimately try to get past 20 feet. But after not executing her first part of her runway correctly, she's running out of space, so she doesn't have the room to do a longer penultimate step right here and have a shortcut step without fouling. So she kind of just has to run through the board and just jump off of her natural jumping ability. So that's one thing that she needs to work on, is having enough space from her coach's mark, just right here on in. So, and that's a drill that we practice over and over again. Lowering the hips, trying to block out with a straight leg. It's tough to see because the official's in front of her, but she has a slight bend at her knee. There's a break. It's a break. Let's see if we can blow it up. Someone kind of draw a line between where her foot's at and where the official's at. So she has a break right here at her knee, another break at her hips. So she's actually losing energy. She's losing energy. So when she plants, it's not a smooth flow. It's not a smooth flow. All right, her horizontal force is carrying her this way. We need that to actually project her up. So she's losing energy. Ideally, I like to see her body in this position, no breaks, not a break at her knee, not a break at her hips, so she can get all that energy and force that she's applying into the ground to flow up through her body evenly. So there's some breaks right there. And because there's a break, there's a collapse. So we're trying to eliminate the contact time on the ground, so we can keep all that speed. Person that decelerates the most jumps the shortest amount, the shortest distance. If you take a kid at same height, same speed, person that decelerates the most at takeoff jumps the shortest. So we always talk about being fast at takeoff. Another thing, when we're looking at her last step, this is the reason why this penultimate step right here needs to be longer. Her last step, we're focusing on her takeoff. So another drill that we work on is, as soon as you toe off the ground off this back foot right here, this heel up here needs to be contacting the ground. So here's toe off. She glides. That's the wait. Now she's finally getting into full support here. So I always want to eliminate that gliding. All right, she's gliding into what we call a weak block because she has breaks in her body. So that's creating a longer contact time, more of a collapse, sink, a jump. Tajanel is such a good athlete. She's so fast that this jump had her ranked still top 12 in the country and was center of the nationals, but there's still a large room for improvement on this particular jump. Flight mechanics, long jump. The style that she uses is called a hitch kick, which simulates running in the air. She does 1.5 cycles. Some people do 2.5 cycles, 2 cycles. She's doing a good job of fighting some of that forward rotation. She's dropping this leg and extending it out while her arms are fighting that forward rotation. And the reason why she's doing this so she doesn't fall on her face. If you could imagine a car going, if you could imagine a car going 50 miles an hour in this direction, and there's just a water bottle sitting on top of it. You know what happens when you come to a complete stop? That bottle is going to topple over. Okay, so that's essentially what your body's doing. At your center of mass, your body's going to rotate around that when you take off. Your flight path is already taken, so her running in the air is not helping her achieve any more distance. It's just helping her protect her hips, which is about where her center of mass is on average throughout the jump, to land as far as it can in the pit. So basically, we're just kind of looking at our hips or at our waist, and we're assuming that's generally where center of mass is. And we're trying to manipulate that to stay in a good flight path so that it's landing the closest to the takeoff board. And she does a good job of keeping her arms out of the way to not make a mark in the sand before that. All in all, it's a pretty good jump. She needs to execute her drive phase better without reaching out as much so she can hit her coach's mark, which will give her enough space on her last 7 steps to attack and execute the jump the correct way. Congratulations, Tajanel. I think this jump had her place second at the CIAA championships and had her ranked and qualified her for the national championships. Thanks for tuning in today, guys. Stay tuned for the future when we break down some more of our athletes' performances.